Hello there. This is Mad Mike again. Welcome to the channel. And today I'm going to do something a little different. This is something I've kind of been wanting to do for a while now, and I decided to do a fan cast of what the MCU versions of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four might be. Because I thought that would be something interesting just to look, because chances are they are going to recast all those characters when they put them in the MCU. So I thought maybe it would be kind of fun to look at some of the some of the actors and actresses that are available that I think might be a good idea to play those characters. So let's dive in, and the first one, which is the big one, is going to be Wolverine. Now, I'd love to see Hugh Jackman come back. I love the Wolverine. I love Logan. I like him in the X-Men films that he appears in, and I can't say that I wouldn't be ecstatic to see him back. I just don't think he will because, he said he wasn't going to come back after Logan, and he's 50 years old already, and, there's a lot of stuff in there for him. So I don't know. Even if he did come back, I wouldn't think he would come back for very long. So my choice for Wolverine would be Scott Caan. Now, most people know him as a starring role on Hawaii Five-O. He's been on there for 9 seasons, I believe now, or 8 or 9. And he has that tough guy look. He's fuzzy, which helps because Wolverine is a fuzzy character. And he also has the proper height for Wolverine. He stands at, I believe, 5'3", which is almost exactly what the height for Wolverine is in the comic books. Whereas Hugh Jackman is, I believe, he's over 6 feet. So he fits more of the physical aspect. He is very muscular, which you need for a Wolverine character. Even though he is in his early 40s, the thing is, he's not. Wolverine shouldn't look like a young person. He shouldn't look like a kid because, obviously, if we're picking up in the X-Men, Wolverine was born sometime in the 1800s, so he shouldn't look like a young guy. He should look, like a middle-aged guy, basically. But that's my pick. I like Scott Caan for that role, and I think he'd do a great job with it. A lot of people have said Scott Eastwood, and personally, I think he's a bit too much of a pretty boy for it. I think you kind of need a down and dirty, almost grungy kind of guy to play Wolverine. Even though Hugh Jackman does clean up well, I think he does that better than most would. So then we move on. So Cyclops. So the next big X-Men. So currently, he is being played by a younger actor. I can't remember the actor's name off the top of my head, but he's played him in X-Men Apocalypse, and will be playing him again in the last X-Men film from Fox, which is Dark Phoenix. So I don't really think that they'll get him back. I don't think they'll sign any of those actors back, like I said, even though they're young. So my choice for that character would be Dylan O'Brien, who many people know from the Maze Runner series. But here's the thing. He still looks really young, even though he's in, I believe, his late 20s now. He still looks really young. You can sign him on for 10 years. You can get him for a good amount of time. And I think that if you make sure that he keeps up with his physical regimens and stuff like that, which, I mean, he's been doing really good lately too, because he just did in a movie with Michael Keaton, American Assassins, which basically is an action movie, and he looks a lot better doing that. So I think he's pretty much ready to step up for a superhero movie, and I think that he would make a good Cyclops. So now we're going to move on to Jean Grey. And Jean Grey is one that I kind of had a toss-up between two actresses. And I wound up going with one actress mainly just because she was actually taller than the other actress, which the other actress is also on this list, but I'll share that later. But, Jean Grey, she classic interpretation, flowing red hair, beautiful woman. I think in the comics, if I remember correctly, I think she became a model at one point. But my pick for her would be Shailene Woodley. And I think that because we've seen her with red hair, she was actually supposed to play another Marvel character. She was supposed to play Mary Jane Watson for Amazing Spider-Man 3, which never happened. And she got written out of Amazing Spider-Man 2, which she was supposed to be in. So we've seen her with red hair. She looks relatively good with red hair. And on top of that, I think that she's probably looking for something to get into pretty seriously after, they had the Divergent movies that, the young adult movies that they sink the actors and actresses that are from them for the most part, except for maybe one or two. But I think she'd make a good Jean Grey, and I think that she would actually pair well with Dylan O'Brien. I think that would be interesting. So now we go on to a bit of a conundrum for me, because we go on to Beast. Now, Beast, I think Kelsey Grammer played him perfectly. I don't think you could find somebody better than Kelsey Grammer. Unfortunately, Kelsey Grammer is older now. He is not a young man, and I don't think he would be appropriate for playing that role at this point. So this is my pick, and like it or hate it, I like Haley Joel Osment. And for those people who don't know who that is, he is the kid from The Sixth Sense. And he's kept his acting career relatively active. I mean, he's still acting in television shows and some short films and stuff like that. But listening to him talk and seeing his actual his body type, Beast is kind of a low to the ground character. He's he's wide, but he's buff. And I think you could definitely have Osmond do that. I think Osmond has the acting chops to do that. And the other thing is that I know that right now he's not really in the best of physical shape, but that could obviously be changed. They could put him on a physical regimen, and he could get jacked up in a couple months. But the other thing is, again, he's young. You could sign him for a long time, and even after he's become the blue fuzzy Beast. You could use CGI to touch some things up if you really had to, but I think he would make a really good Beast. And now Shadowcat, who was the other actress that I was thinking of for Jean Grey, but again, because she was shorter, I felt that she would probably do better as Shadowcat. And again, she looks like a very young actress, even though she's in her late 20s now. And that's Emma Watson. And I think Emma Watson would do a fairly good job of that. She's proven that she has good acting chops. Obviously the Harry Potter movies. She was in the remake of Beauty and the Beast, or the live action remake of Beauty and the Beast. And she proves that she does have an acting range. I do remember her cameo from This Is the End, which was hilarious. So I would like to see her cast in something in Marvel, because I think that she deserves something. But I think she would make a good Shadowcat. I think she would make a good Kitty Pryde. So now we move on to a bit of an obscure pick, because we have Angel. Now, I know that in X-Men Apocalypse they had Angel, and they gave him some screen time in that movie. They gave him a decent amount of screen time in that movie. But at the same time, you don't really learn a whole lot about him. Apocalypse finds him and turns him into Archangel, and then he gets bumped off before the end of the movie. So you really don't know a lot about him. And then you have also Angel, who's in X-Men The Last Stand, but again, you don't really learn a lot about him in that either. You just kind of see him, and he's in a few scenes, and you kind of find out that his father's really rich and owns a company, and they want to amputate his wings and stuff like that. So they don't really do much justice to his character, considering he's one of the original X-Men. So the actor I want to see play Angel is Austin Butler. Now, Austin Butler was a Nickelodeon kid. He is now grown up to the point where he is in some adult stuff. He's been in Arrow more than a few times, and that's kind of he's been introduced to the superhero thing. And then on top of that, he's also going to be in the upcoming Tarantino movie about the Manson family called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, the reason why I think they should cast him is because of the Tarantino movie, and also because he does look the part. And that's because if that movie turns out to be really, really good, and they cast him, that means that they're just going to catapult his career even further, and he's probably going to want that too. So, I mean, like I said, it hinges a bit on that movie, whether or not he's cast in the actual film, but I think that he would make a very good Angel. Now, next we're going to go over to Iceman, and this is one of my personal favorite picks that I made. Now, Iceman, Bobby Drake, is of the original X-Men. He is the youngest out of the original bunch, and I felt that you had to cast a young actor to play him, and this actor is actually young as opposed to somebody who just looks young, and that's Chandler Riggs. And if you don't know who Chandler Riggs is, I mean, probably tell by the picture who he is if you're a fan of The Walking Dead. But he played Carl on Walking Dead, and he's recently gotten out of that, and he's done some other acting roles recently, small ones. But he's shown that he knows how to act and that he can act, and he's acted from an early age. And I think that he would do a good Iceman. I think he would be a good Bobby Drake. And obviously they won't screw. Hopefully they won't screw him up like they have in the comic books, where they just turn him into a stereotype of a gay person that doesn't really have any kind of emotions and just goes on Tinder all the time. But I think he would make a good Iceman. So now we're gonna move on. And we're going to move on and see Colossus. Now, Colossus was one that I kind of had a bit of an issue with, just because he is such a hulking and big character, again, like the Hulk, where I figured, like what they did in Deadpool 2, where he's a complete, or Deadpool 1 and 2, where he's just a completely CGI character. I could see them doing that. But if they're going to put him in terms of a physical actor, I thought that maybe they would go with somebody like Alexander Skarsgård. Now, for people who don't know who he is, he played recently Tarzan in the movie The Legend of Tarzan, which came out a few years ago, which he also co-starred with Sam Jackson. So, you have that kind of a connection there. And then also his father, Stellan Skarsgård, plays Dr. Eric Selvig in the Thor movies and in the first Avengers film. So he kind of has some connections to the MCU already, and I feel like he would make a good Colossus because he is a big dude in terms of just his physique. He is a big dude, and I feel like if you jacked him up a little bit more, if he put on some more muscle, then he would be a perfect Colossus. So, that's my choice for that, and then we're going to move on here. We're going to move on to Storm. Now, Storm was one that, again, I was kind of hard pressed for, but I think I found one that's a really good pick. And her name is Nicole Bahari, and I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. And she's mainly known for she had a main role on the Sleepy Hollow TV series, and she also played Rachel Robinson in the Jackie Robinson biopic 42. Now that factors into my choice a lot, because here's the thing. Jackie Robinson in that movie was played by Chadwick Boseman, who is now Black Panther. And those two had good chemistry on screen in that movie. Now, the thing is with Storm eventually gets married to Black Panther in the comic books, and it's stated that they had a relationship when they were younger, when they were teenagers. So if you cast a Storm, why not cast somebody who's already played a love interest to the same actor who you now have playing Black Panther? So that factored into it quite a bit, actually, after I saw her. And she's also fairly young. She's mid to late 20s, I believe. So, that's something there. So now we go to the leader of the X-Men, Professor X. So, again, this is a situation where I would love to have Patrick Stewart play Professor X for eternity, but that's just not in the cards. I mean, the man's almost 80 years old. I don't think he's going to be playing this role for another 10 years, and if he did, I don't know if, he would look decrepit by the end of it. He looks very good for his age, but my choice for Professor X is Ralph Fiennes, who, if you don't remember him, he was in Schindler's List, and he's been in a lot of movies since then. He's not necessarily a young guy, but Professor X is not necessarily meant to be a young guy. But I think that he fits that well. He's a British actor, like Patrick Stewart, and he's classically trained. But I think he would fit in very well in that role over time, and I think that he has the ability to command a scene a lot like Patrick Stewart can. So then we're going to go down, and we're going to go down to Emma Frost. Now, Emma Frost is one that I had an actress in mind immediately, and really, I didn't even think of anybody else because I knew that she had not been in the MCU, and that actress is Charlize Theron. And Charlize Theron has been in action movies, she's been in dramas, she's won Oscars, and it would be a great idea to try and lump her into the MCU somehow, and I think she would make a great Emma Frost. I think she can 100% command that kind of superimposing presence that Emma Frost has in the comic books in a lot of ways, and I think she can play that manipulative role that Emma Frost can play. So, there's that. So, that one was kind of clear cut for me. Next one is Sabretooth, and this one again was kind of a clear cut one. You need that, like Wolverine, you need that gruff actor, you need that down and dirty type of actor to play Sabretooth. And my choice was Michael Kudlitz. And Michael Kudlitz is another Walking Dead alumni like Chandler Riggs. He played Abraham on Walking Dead. And again, it just shows that he can play this gruff, badass type of dude, and I think he would do amazing as Sabretooth. Hell, he has the hair already. But again, that one was kind of a clear cut. Then the next one we have down is Mystique, and Mystique is another one that Rebecca Romaine Stamos played her, and then Jennifer Lawrence played her, and they both did great jobs as that character. And again, if she goes back to the MCU, we don't know if we're going to have that same like blue bodysuit type of look, or if they're going to put her in the classic that classic white costume she always had, or if they're going to do something else with her. So, but you still need that kind of commanding, like sexy female look to her. And my choice for that was Mila Kunis. And I think that she's somebody that has shown in the past, more specifically with the movie Oz Great and Powerful, that she can play kind of a bad character or a jaded character. People have made fun of her in recent years because of her stint in the comedy pool with, I believe it was Bad Moms, and she also did a few, I forget the movie she did with Justin Timberlake, Friends with Benefits or something like that. And, Jupiter Ascending might as well have been a comedy. The Wachowskis have definitely fallen from grace in that sense. But I think she would do a great Mystique, and I think that they should try and get her for that role if they do intend on recasting it. Because I don't think Jennifer Lawrence will come back to that. I think that she's pretty much called it quits on that character. So next, we're going to go to Toad. Now, Toad is a lesser character. He doesn't really show up in the movies that much. He shows up in the first X-Men movie. He shows up in the cartoon. X-Men Evolution. I can't remember if he showed up in the 90s X-Men cartoon. But, he's kind of a main character in a lot of ways with Magneto's Brotherhood of Mutants. So I'd like to see him in it. And I think the perfect casting for him would be DJ Qualls. And DJ Qualls is an actor that, he's not young. I think he's in his late 30s. He's probably maybe 40. But he's one of those guys that he has that almost sickly look to him, where he's really scrawny, and he feels like that kind of guy. He feels like he would be a good frog or a good toad, which is, I don't mean to be insulting to him, but he has that kind of feeling. And for those of you who don't know who that is, obviously the picture's in front of you, but he was in Road Trip. He was in The Core, which was a terrible movie. But I think he would make a good Toad, and I think you could sign him on for at least a few movies. I don't think he'd have a major role in many movies, but you could definitely get him. Now, the next one again was a clear-cut one for me, and this is Juggernaut. Now, Juggernaut, like Colossus, is somebody that you need somebody huge, but you need somebody bigger than Colossus for this, and that was where I kind of only one person really came to mind for that role, and that was Gregor Clegane. And Gregor Clegane, otherwise known as the Mountain from Game of Thrones, should be your only choice for Juggernaut, unless you're going to do a CGI Juggernaut like Deadpool 2. Because Gregor Clegane is the Juggernaut in real life. He is basically that guy. And I could 100% see him dressed up in that dome helmet with the suit and everything on, and I think it would look amazing. And if they did that, because Juggernaut doesn't really have too many lines. You don't really need to have him say that much. Just run around and level people. But they did have the representation of him in X-Men: The Last Stand, which was meh. They try to explain his powers a bit differently. I'm sure if he goes back to the MCU, they'll explain his powers canonically from the comics, or at least something similar to that. Now, this next one is a pick that I really, really like, and I think this would be interesting if they actually did it, especially because the actor in question is no longer attached to another long-running franchise. And this is the character of Magneto. and that would be Daniel Craig. Now, here's the thing: Daniel Craig, again, an English actor, a lot like Ian McKellen, and I think he would be an adequate replacement for Michael Fassbender. But the thing is that Magneto in the comic books is jacked up. He is really muscular in the comic books, and they do not really show that much in the films. You know, obviously Ian McKellen was older when he played the character, so he's not going to be, you know, completely jacked up. And then Michael Fassbender, even though he was in really good shape, he was not, you know, a very muscular. Daniel Craig has some muscle on his frame, and I think he could definitely play a very good version of Magneto. The other thing is he really commands a presence when he's acting, and you can just look at the James Bond films for that, especially the good ones anyway. We can count on Quantum of Solace, but you know, Casino Royale, Skyfall, Spectre. I can't remember. There's a fourth one in there, but you know, he I think would be a really good choice for Magneto. And for that finishes off the X-Men. But we're going to go into the Fantastic Four real quick, and there's only 5 that I've cast here, obviously the main 4, and we're going to start off with Mr. Fantastic. Now, again, this is a case where we've had film adaptations before, the 2 Tim Story movies that came out in the mid-2000s, which were meh. But these, specifically Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm, have both had actors that are now being campaigned for. And I think they're both amazing picks. And for Mr. Fantastic, I will choose John Krasinski. And for people who don't know him, I mean, you should at this point because he's in a lot of things now. But most people know him from his role in The Office. And a lot of people know him now because he's in the Jack Ryan television series on Hulu. And he was in the movie 13 Hours about the Benghazi embassy incident. But I think he would be a really good Mr. Fantastic. I think he's a great actor. And I'd love to see him in the role just to see what he'd do. So now we're going to move on to the Invisible Woman, and this is the actress that is also connected with John Krasinski, and that is Emily Blunt. And Emily Blunt, I mean, it speaks for itself because she has a filmography a mile long. She was recently in Mary Poppins Returns, which got really good reviews. She was in Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise, which was very good. She's been in romantic comedies like The Adjustment Bureau with Matt Damon and Anthony Mackie, who is also in the MCU now as Falcon. But you know, she's a very good actress, and people have been campaigning for those 2 specifically as Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman respectively, and I think that's a great idea. Now we go down to Human Torch, and Human Torch is the one where I said, okay, I have to put this guy in here somewhere because he gets campaigned all the time to get put in a superhero movie, and that is Scott Eastwood. And the reason why I choose him for this is the same reason why I didn't choose him for Wolverine, and that's because I think he can play the pretty boy. I think he can play the pretty boy, the guy with the ego, the guy who the wisecracker and stuff like that. You know, I think he can be the Chris Evans of back in 2004 when they did the first Fantastic Four. I think he can do a very good impression of that, which is pretty close to what Johnny Storm is in the comic books, at least the younger version of him. So I would like to see Scott Eastwood play that role. I think it would be interesting, and I think it would be a big stepping stone in his career. And now the last one is the Thing, which is my favorite character out of the Fantastic Four and a lot of people's. And here's the thing with the Thing is this character or this actor that I chose for him, I think works both ways because I think that you're not going to see a Thing in the MCU that's going to be practical effects. I think they're going to do CGI like what they did with the Hulk. So the actor that I chose is John DiMaggio. And a lot of people know him for his voice work. He voiced Bender on Futurama. He voiced Marcus Phoenix in Gears of War. He did a voice on Adventure Time. I can't remember the character because I haven't seen that show in a very long time. But he's known for his voice acting. And if you do a CGI character after his transformation into the Thing, then that's what he's going to be doing, his voice acting, which is what he knows. And on top of that, I think he would make a good Ben Grimm because, he's kind of like Michael Kudlitz, where he's this wide guy. He's got this wide frame, and he's relatively muscular. I think he'd probably lose some weight for the role, obviously, if he was playing Ben Grimm, but I think it would work. And then obviously you have him in his strength afterwards, which is voice acting. Now this last one is going to catch me flack. It's going to catch me flack from a few people probably, which is Doctor Doom. And I thought to myself for a very long time about how I wanted to approach Doctor Doom. And Doctor Doom is a character that he's one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe. He's loved by so many people, and he's been done wrong by so many people in all three of the Fantastic Four movies. And my choice for Doctor Doom is Keith David. And I know people are going to start screaming, "Oh, you're race swapping Doctor Doom." Look, here's the thing. Most of the time, Doctor Doom doesn't really take off that damn helmet. He really doesn't. He keeps that suit on for a majority of the time in the comic books. I think there's probably been a couple of occasions other than before he actually got the suit and his powers that he didn't have it on and you could see his face. But here's the thing. Think about Keith David's voice coming out of Doctor Doom. What more of a menacing voice can you think of that can come out of a character? What voice can you think of that can just silence a room other than Keith David right now? And that's the main thing. Is like I don't even need Keith David in the actual physical suit. I just want his voice. And you know what? You could de-age him. You could 100% de-age him just for that first movie when he gets established, and you establish the stuff between him and Reed Richards and all that, and then afterwards, then you show him, and obviously after he gets the suit and stuff, then you just have Keith David do the voice work. He's basically walking around in a suit of Iron Man armor essentially, so you could just do the voice work, and you don't even have to show his face. And Keith David, again, is used to doing a lot of voice work. He voiced Spawn and Spawn the Animated Series from HBO. And he's done a lot of other voice work on the side, too, for video games and cartoons and a bunch of other stuff. So, that's my choice for Doctor Doom. Like it or hate it, that is my choice. That's my fan cast for X-Men and Fantastic Four. And, if you like it, put a like on the video. And if you think that there are any better choices out there for these characters, put them in the comments below. I'd like to know what you guys think of both my choices and what you might choose for yourself. And don't forget to hit the bell for reminders. And remember, I live my life without compromise. Do you?